What's up, gamers? I'm your host, Cobra, and this is the Freeroll. Today, we're taking a look at Parallel Alpha's comic series, The Priming. Now, I was planning to make a video about this anyways, but then my good buddy Goldy dropped a blog post about the comic drop on Saturday, and it's a really good blog post, so I wanted to simply take you through what he wrote and share a little bit of additional analysis from my end. Now, if you're not aware, Goldy is a longtime supporter of the project Parallel. He has operated as a mod and helped the team with various activities over the last almost 2 years now since that project first got discovered. He's also one of the co-founders of our NFT alpha community, the Meta Blazers, and a good friend of mine. I highly recommend that you give him a follow on Twitter and check out his blog series. He's also been covering the emerging lore within Parallel, which is very cool and an excellent read if you want to know a little bit more about the universe. First things first, the drop is happening on Saturday, October 29th at 5 p.m. Eastern. There are 3 editions that you could potentially land, and each comes with a different set of goodies. There's also some additional utility for each of these comics as well, which we are going to discuss here now. Yes, everybody that mints is going to get a digital comic, but don't expect to be emailed a PDF with some artwork panels, because the Parallel Alpha team always goes above and beyond when it comes to their products. They're also very well known for having excellent artwork, so I have very high expectations for each of these comics. Then in addition, each comic is also going to come with a mysterious shard. Now, we don't know very much about these shards other than they are going to be required for some sort of additional metagame collecting that is going to be released later on. That said, it is a game utility NFT and likely will have some real value, and it'll be very interesting to see if the market speculates on what that shard could represent before we actually find out. As for supply, there's going to be a total of 3,333 of these comics, with 2,233 of them being the first edition or the common. Then there's going to be 1,000 collector editions, and there's going to be 100 prime editions. Now, the collector's editions and the prime editions are very likely going to be worth more than the first edition, even though they are the same comic. It's a more rare version with different cover artwork, and that will definitely be desirable, at least a little bit. But the other very cool thing is that while everybody is also going to get one of those prime shards, only the people that land a collector or prime edition will get a card back included as well. Now, there are 6 different versions of this card back that are going to be available that relate back to the comic, so it might be different covers, but either way, those card backs will have some different rarity applied to them as well. And if you're lucky enough to land one of those, I expect them to be relatively sought after. Each comic is going to run you 0.21 Ethereum, which is the same cost as a parallel pack on the drop price anyways, and not inexpensive by any means. However, this is the very first comic that is coming out, and I expect that there is quite a bit of demand for these, so even the first edition should hold some decent value, though it's difficult to say if it's going to be worth more than the actual mint price. The prime shard itself is really anybody's guess, but that is also an NFT, and because we know so little about it, I think the speculation could be high, and those might have some decent value as well. It might also be really interesting when we learn more about what that is going to actually be. Then there's the card backs that you could potentially land with the better editions of the comic, and it's a little bit difficult to tell because there's a lot of card backs in the collection today, but the very cheapest one is going for 0.1. The majority of them are going for more than 0.3, so odds are pretty decent that if you're lucky enough to land at least a collector's edition and get one of those card backs, that it's going to have some decent additional value as well. Since you've got about a 33% chance of landing a collector's edition or prime edition, and those all come with the card back, then that means you've got about a 33% chance of landing that. And if you do, then I find it very hard to believe that you're not going to be able to make money on this drop. Of course, making money requires selling your NFTs, which you might not want to do in this particular case. Now, again, if you're lucky enough to land a collector or prime edition of the digital comic, then you're in the future going to get the option to redeem a physical version of that comic as well, which is pretty cool. Then if you collect a full set of all 6 of the digital comics, and in this case it can be any of the editions, so the first edition works as well, but as long as you have one of each for all 6, you're going to be able to redeem for a hardcover physical of all 6 of the comics put together. I don't expect that there's going to be too many of those redeemed, maybe 500 to 1,000, which means it'll be a pretty scarce collectible, and quite honestly, something I would love to add to the shelf behind me. As I mentioned earlier, the comic series is going to detail the lore of the world that we are playing in for Parallel. It's going to focus on each of the 5 different Parallel factions, and at the beginning of the story is going to be pre-war times, and then there's going to be a whole bunch of events that lead up to everybody going to war at the end of the series. So it'll be really interesting to see what leads up to that and what kind of bad blood exists between each of the different parallels. And that wraps up today's quick breakdown on the Parallel Alpha comic series, The Priming, which drops this weekend on October 29th. I hope you found this informational and informative. And if you did, consider giving us a follow on Twitter. That's where I love to engage with the web3 gaming community and answer all of your questions. Also, do me a favor and check that you've hit that subscribe button. It really helps to support the channel.